Welcome to The Explainer, where today we're breaking down one of the most astonishing startup stories in recent memory. We're talking about a company that went from a college dorm room to a nearly $30 billion valuation in just 3 years. This is the story of Cursor.
All right, let's just start with a number that, honestly, it almost doesn't seem real. $29.3 billion. Right, so that's the valuation of this AI coding tool, Cursor. And it just begs the question, doesn't it? How on earth did 4 friends, fresh out of college, build a company worth this much in just 3 years? Okay, let's get into it.
So, our story? It doesn't begin in some fancy boardroom. Nope, it starts back in the halls of MIT, with 4 computer science classmates.
So here they are, Michael, Sualeh, Aman, and Arvid, all from the MIT computer science class of 2022. And you know, instead of taking those cushy, high-paying jobs at the big tech companies, they decided to bet on themselves, to build something totally new.
And this really lays out the choice that co-founder Michael Truell was looking at back in 2022. I mean, can you imagine turning down offers from Google, from Meta, trading that guaranteed salary for, ramen-fueled nights and absolutely zero guarantee of success? It's the classic startup dilemma. And that whole risky dream, it was all sparked by this really simple but profound question he had during those late-night coding sessions at MIT. What if coding could feel more like thinking? See, the goal wasn't just to make coding faster. It was to completely change how it felt. Less about fighting with syntax and all that frustrating stuff, and more about just pure creation.
So, yeah, they took the leap. They founded their company, Anysphere, with this super clear mission. And they got backing, an $8 million seed investment, which is great, but what's really key here is who led that round. OpenAI's startup fund. I mean, think about that. This wasn't just cash. It was a massive vote of confidence from the very people building the AI models that would be the engine for their whole vision. Okay, so they've got the money, they've got this big vision, but what were they actually building? See, they didn't just want to build another tool. They were trying to create an entirely new feel, a whole new vibe for programming.
And they actually called it vibe coding. I love that. The idea was to make an AI that felt less like a clunky tool and more like, the perfect pair programmer. That partner who just gets it. They instantly understand your entire project. They anticipate your next move, and they're always perfectly in sync with your style.
So, how did they pull this off? How'd they make it feel so instantaneous? Well, the magic was really in the engineering. It's super clever. They used advanced caching, which basically preloads all the important stuff from your code so the AI isn't starting from scratch every time. And then, and this is the cool part, speculative editing. It's literally pre-computing the code changes it thinks you're going to make in the background. The result? Zero lag. It feels like the AI is thinking one step ahead of you, because it kind of is. And look, this was way more than just a gimmick. We're not talking about simple autocomplete here. Cursor was handling the really complex, time-sucking tasks that developers deal with every single day. Things like debugging really tricky errors, refactoring huge chunks of code, even suggesting best practices. And it did it all inside an interface that programmers were already comfortable with.
Okay, so when you build a tool that solves a real problem this well, something amazing happens. You don't really need a giant marketing budget. The word just spreads on its own. And for Cursor, man, it spread like wildfire. I mean, check this out. Over 1 million developers tried it in less than a year, and hundreds of thousands became daily users. This growth wasn't fueled by some massive ad campaign. It was just developers telling other developers, hey, you got to try this thing.
And it wasn't just individual coders loving it either. Entire companies started adopting Cursor. We're talking cutting-edge AI startups like OpenAI and Midjourney, all the way to tech giants like Shopify and Stripe. This was the proof. This wasn't just some fun toy. It was becoming a standard-issue productivity tool for some of the best engineering teams in the world.
And then the endorsements started rolling in from tech legends, which is always a good sign. Like this one from Stripe's Patrick Collison. He said Cursor just exploded internally, from hundreds to thousands of extremely enthusiastic employees. That's a huge deal, coming from one of the most respected engineering organizations on the planet.
And it wasn't just Stripe. Even OpenAI's president, Greg Brockman, was praising them. He basically said that tools like Cursor are just scratching the surface, like 1% of what's possible. I mean, when the people building the fundamental AI models are that excited about what you're doing with them, you know you're onto something big.
And the hustle behind the scenes, it was just as intense. There's this legendary story about them flying across the world and literally concocting a fake dinner party just to recruit one single engineer they really wanted.
I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about their level of commitment to building the absolute best team possible. So you take this product that people absolutely love, you combine it with that kind of relentless execution. And what do you get? You get a tidal wave of investor interest. And when that wave hit, it was absolutely massive.
Okay, just look at this timeline. The sheer velocity of their growth is just staggering. I mean, to put this in perspective for you, a lot of successful startups take what, 5, 7 years to become a unicorn, a billion-dollar company? Cursor went from an $8 million seed round to a nearly $30 billion valuation in just over 2 years. It's wild. Each funding round wasn't just a step up, it was a quantum leap into another stratosphere. And look, this wasn't just investor hype, paper money. This valuation was being backed by absolutely exploding revenue. You can see their annual recurring revenue, which mostly came from people paying for pro subscriptions, just skyrocketed. This is the proof. Developers didn't just like Cursor, they found it so valuable that they were more than happy to pull out their wallets for it.
So, after all that, what's the big takeaway here? What can we learn from this incredible journey? What's the core lesson from the story of Cursor?
I think co-founder Aman Sanger really nailed the essence of their success with this quote. He said, "Developers don't just try Cursor, they switch to it permanently." And that's it, right? They built something so good, so deeply integrated into the workflow, that it became indispensable. It had that stickiness because it solved a fundamental, painful problem better than anything else out there.
So really, the story of Cursor gives us a new playbook for how to build a company in the age of AI. It's not about having the biggest marketing budget. It's about starting with a really powerful, simple vision that comes from a deep understanding of a user's frustration. It's about focusing relentlessly, obsessively on the user experience. You let an incredible product create its own hype, and then you back it all up with that tenacious, fly across the world for one engineer kind of execution. They prove that a small, obsessed team can, in fact, still change an entire industry.
The story of Cursor really proves that the next multi-billion-dollar company might not come from some fancy corporate R&D lab. It might just come from a dorm room. And as AI becomes a co-pilot for pretty much every profession, not just coding, it leaves us with one final thought, right? Whose late-night frustration, whose dorm room dream is going to spark the next revolution?